Okay, perfect. Okay, so hi you guys, thanks for coming. It's so weird when I can't see you and I can't hear you. Are you all there? No?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Okay, great.
Yes.
Okay, great. I'm just gonna talk for a little bit here. Okay, so I loved this quote. I like to think of sales as the ability to gracefully persuade, not manipulate a person or persons into a win-win situation. Okay, so just, and I know you guys are kind of multitasking, but what okay, I'll just tell you like my pet peeve of all pet peeves is when I go to a car dealership to buy a car, because I buy more, like I buy cars more often than a normal person should. um but when I encounter a salesman who doesn't know what he's talking about and doesn't know the answers to very simple questions, it bothers me. So, one of the things that I've tried to do over the course of my career is to become super knowledgeable. And the best way that you do that is to do the job. You do the job, you do it over and over and over again, and you get really good. And when you list a house, you know the property. So it becomes easy to sell because you have enthusiasm about things that you're familiar with. Like, so the more familiar you are with something and the more confident you are in something, the more easily you can persuade people without manipulating them into like making decisions, writing offers. And I start with that because I think it's important. Like, we're going into a buyer's market. So if you're going to become a listing agent, you're no longer an order taker and a sign installer. You have got to know how to sell this property because these offers are going to come at you and they're going to be very favorable to the buyer right now. And so you got to be able to negotiate. So, and I know this isn't a negotiation class, but but it's all about, writing offers. And so as a buyer's agent in this business, like right now, it's your time to shine because you're in the, honestly, you I would say on, this is me spitting out numbers, so I don't know, but I would say on, like, in my experience right now, in like 70% of listings, you as a buyer's agent and the buyer are in the driver's seat. That's not always the case. It's location dependent, it's price dependent, but you're kind of in the driver's seat. So, you know um it's your time to shine as a buyer's agent. So let's just hop right into preparing to write the offer. So have any of you guys written an offer on a property yet? No?
No.
Okay. So I have written offers on properties before and come to find out they are already under contract. So that is really unfortunate, but it does happen because we've become like very automated in this business, unfortunately. And I think those agents who are really, committed to doing a good job here, and truly representing their clients to the best of their abilities are, yes, you're taking advantage and utilizing those resources to make things easier. And like, I couldn't do the level of business I do now with the resources I had in 2003 when I started. Like, um I mean, I didn't even have a map on my phone. Like, you're showing houses in neighborhoods you've never been to with no map. Like, I actually, when I started in the business, we were still handwriting offers with carbon copies. We would take the top copy as like our copy, and then we would give the middle copy to the title company and the other copy to the lender. So, like, I go way back. We have so many tools that make it so much more convenient for us now, but that can also start to hinder your ability to really, do a good job and represent your client. So you got to make contact with the listing agent. You got to call and say, hey, is this property still available? How have your showings been? What has your activity been like? What is your seller looking for in the offer? And then try to build rapport with them, because they might say, yeah, we have another offer coming in. Well, then that's your opportunity to say, what can we do to be the winning offer? um, I can promise you that I can see this through to closing and get this closed for you and your seller. I know you've been on the market a long time, and I'm sure that's really stressful for you and them. What can we do to get this done for you and make it a win-win for everybody? So that's where you're making contact, you're building rapport, you're inquiring about activity on the property, other offers, and then yeah, just like questions about seller's motivation. Like I'm a good like what not to do person because I move pretty fast. And sometimes I'm like, oh yeah, I should have done this differently. But I definitely have like written offers where I'm like, okay, I've talked to the lender. He can get you closed in 2.5 weeks. Let's write it that way. We're going to be this quick closing. We're going to mimic a cash offer. I send it in and the agent's like, well, they need 30 days, And so it's like, oh yeah, I should have asked that. So you want to kind of get a feel for sellers' timing and then gauge that with what is realistic for your buyers for their due diligence period for lenders to get their loan done, and then create that offer that's a win-win for both parties. There's lots of like tricks to the trade too, like different things that maybe like this offer 101 class isn't necessarily covering, but like say a seller does need to be there for a little while, but they're really nervous about the deal falling through. Okay, well, we can do a quick closing and give you a rent back and do a lease back addendum, So there's lots of options to make it work and to make your offer stand out, to not always have to be the highest offer to be the best offer. So anyway, okay, asking agents how they want to receive the offer. So I always email my offers as a PDF with like an explanation and bullet points as to the important aspects of the offer. So sorry, I'm just getting some text here. And so that is really, really important. And I learned that like probably like a couple years into my career, because I would like, again, like I just kind of move quick through things, and I would just like send over an offer. And then I started seeing different agents like send offers with really good like offer letters and bullet points. And so I started to mimic that in my business. And I think it's really helpful for a listing agent, especially when they're dealing with multiple offers, which I think will never go away because you're always going to have those standout properties in Salt Lake County and well, throughout the state, really. And so make your offer stand out, like make it easy for the listing agent to see what's going on. I got an offer this week and it's fine. This is a great agent on the other end, but she just kept sending me stuff via dot loop with no PDF. So I have to go in, log in, get the offer, download the offer. And I'm like, she could have just made it a lot easier for everybody by at least attaching a PDF, but sending one in a separate email is preferred. Pre-approval letters are important. Like I don't always get one, but because I just know like I work with a lot of higher end clients. Like I know they're good to go, but so we might not always have a letter, but I would say 8 out of 10 times you're going to be asked for one. So might as well have that in advance. So reviewing the MLS and tax records, that's really important because the listing agent isn't always going to properly list the address, isn't always going to properly list the seller information. So I had a situation about 5 years ago. I had an inexperienced listing agent on the other end who was selling a $1.5 million house for her brother. I had made an offer on behalf of my clients. The seller, this was during like the craziness of like the pandemic years, the seller changed their mind about selling. So the agent said, oh, I'm sorry, the seller changed their mind. And I was like, the seller doesn't have an out from the contract. They can't change their mind. And she's like, well, we're still in due diligence. And I'm like, oh my gosh, like that's not how the offer works. But if you're canceling, we're taking our earnest money times two. Because I told my clients, I'm like, you probably can't, I probably wouldn't sue them to take their house from them. Like they're a family that has decided they don't want to move. So anyway, we had put down 25,000. So my clients got 50,000 out of that. But my point here is this: I was very nervous because when I wrote the offer, the agent had the address, just like one word was wrong. And so I had copied it down that way. And then when push comes to shove and you end up finding yourself in a potential lawsuit situation, I was like, oh, this could potentially, not that it would be, but it could potentially be an out for someone because they could say this was an invalid contract. The address is wrong. And so it's very important to check the tax records when you're writing a contract. A market analysis is great. Like it's funny too, because we were, in those days when if you want the house, you got to make the offer. You have 2 hours to decide. You probably better offer over ask. We're not in that market anymore. And it's kind of nice because it gives us the opportunity to really analyze the decision with our clients. And so a market analysis is really important as a buyer's agent to make sure that the value is there. I had one this week where I felt like it was a little bit high, like by about 100,000. Um, I felt it was high by 100 to 150, and my clients really, really wanted the house, but I just was like, you guys, I just feel like you're just overpaying for it. Well, lo and behold, it turns out that the previous buyers had done an appraisal, and the house was indeed priced 100,000 over its appraised value. 1.6. And um, so it's good to do that research because as agents, I think it's easy to get caught up in they love it, they're so excited, they're so happy. And I'm over here saying, well, okay, I know you love it. It's not a great investment at this price. And we ended up, losing the property to another buyer. And that's fine. Like I told my clients, like you're welcome to, we can go ahead and write the offer. You're just paying more than it's worth. And so they chose not to go any higher. So it's important to do that homework and make sure that you're advising your client on the price. Oh, sorry, let's see. Yeah, and seller's disclosure statements. So in a lot of states, these are attached to the listings. We just haven't really adopted that practice here in Utah. So you're not really seeing disclosure statements attached to listings. It's usually something that comes within a couple days after going under contract. But if your client's offer is, if there's something that within that disclosure statement that might determine like the price they're willing to offer or the terms they're willing to offer, then it's really good to get those in advance, especially if you're like, you know what, this house is so great. Let's just do a really fast due diligence period to make our offer really competitive. Well, in that case, it would be really good to see the seller's disclosures beforehand so that okay, if we're going to do this really fast and we're going to make this happen, let's at least know what we're getting into. So not totally common practice to ask for seller's disclosures in advance, but good idea if you have the opportunity. Does anybody have any questions? Is anybody still here?
Yes, I'm
Yeah,
here.
I'm here.
Okay. 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 I'm like, am I talking to myself? Because maybe
Here.
Okay. Okay. So do you guys have any questions? Like, have you reviewed a contract with anybody yet? And if so, do you have questions where you're like, what does this mean? What, is this important, etc.? Because I would prefer to just answer your questions, but I can go through this if not.
I'm still so early. I know I will have questions once I get
Okay.
into this
Yeah.
more. I wish I had them right now for you, but
Okay, that's okay.
yeah.
Yeah, I'm pretty much in the same boat here.
Okay, too new to know what to ask. Okay.
Yes.
Okay. So obviously like um we'll just go through this. So prices and terms. That's obviously just something that, you know, you're going to determine through that market analysis and through your buyer's wishes on what they want to offer. And with the terms, you know, so that's section 2 of the Rep C, where it reiterates the purchase, or not reiterates, but first states the purchase price and then the down payments. So that is the one section of the Rep C that is not binding. So if your client says, well, I have 500,000 to put down, but I don't know if I want to put it all down, you can go ahead and put that $500,000 into that section 2 as a down payment. And then they can determine later. I have a client right now that we're just trying to decide because they're going to do some remodeling. So they're going to probably hold some money out, but I went ahead and put the maximum down that they have, just because it's not binding and they are capable of doing that down payment. So, you know, we just wrote it that way. But yeah, just know that that section 2 is the only section of the contract that is not binding. It's changeable. It's okay for a buyer to say they're going to put down one amount and then put down a different amount. What doesn't work is if they're going to switch from like a conventional loan to an FHA loan. You don't want to use a conventional, you don't want to not use an FHA addendum if you're writing an FHA offer, because then you have to get acceptance from the seller for them to do FHA financing. So, but otherwise those terms in there, I mean, FHA versus conventional isn't discussed in section 2, but down payment is. And while there are conventional loans that would let them do 3 to 5% down, FHA is required for like Utah housing. So to get them that 100%. So anyway, you want to know what loan they're getting, but that down payment can vary. Seller's disclosure. So really within our contracts in Utah, I feel like this is a national slide. With our contracts in Utah, we just have a seller disclosure deadline in section 24 that states when the disclosures are due. Technically, that date means that the disclosures are not only due to the buyer, but due signed by the buyer. Most people miss that, but that technically is that deadline. It needs to be given to the buyer and signed by the buyer. And I'm not a broker, so don't quote me on that, but I'm pretty sure that's the technical definition of that section. And so it's important as a listing agent to have those disclosures ready. It's important as a buyer's agent when you're writing an offer to write that in with realistic expectations. So like if your client is offering on a townhome or a condo, which is probably a lot of what you're going to be doing in the early days of your career, you need to find out, because seller disclosure document is one part of the seller disclosures, but the other parts include the HOA minutes, the CCNRs, the HOA budget, any rules and regulations, a title report. Those are all considered seller disclosure documents that are required per the contract. So as the buyer's agent, you need to make sure that they either have those ready for you. Looks like we have someone else here. You either need to have those ready. You either need to make sure they have time to have those ready, or they already, you need to write that date realistically. Don't write it for the next day. It could take some time to gather those documents. Most listing agents are going to have them ready, but not all. It can be a nightmare gathering HOA documents. So anyway, and then the due diligence. Oh, sorry, the conveyances. Sorry, I skipped way ahead. So conveyances means, does something convey with the property? Does the fridge convey? Does the shed convey? So that's in section, like, what is it? I don't have a contract in front of me, but it's on the first page, and it basically says what is included with this property. And I'm trying to find one. I have probably a million on my desk. Just a second. And so that's where you want to do your inclusions and exclusions. And this is where we as agents end up costing ourselves a little bit of money once in a while if we're not really careful. TV mounts, they're included if they're not excluded. Draperies, rods, they're included if they're not, especially rods, they're included if they're not excluded. Washer and dryer, they're excluded if they're not included. So range, it's included if it's not excluded. Fridge, it's excluded if it's not included. So you need to make sure that you and your buyer are on the same page of what they're wanting and what they want to ask for. So, and then what the seller is willing to give. So it might be nice to, as the buyer's agent called the listing agent, my client's kids loved the swing set. Are your clients willing to leave that at the property? And just find that out before you start writing it into an offer. And then they have to counter because they're not willing to let it go. And, so that's that. Any questions there? Okay. This is so weird. I feel like I'm talking to myself. Okay, so earnest money. So this is another one. Every once in a while, I will get a contract that I'm like, what are we doing? Like, very, very little earnest money. And sometimes when you're working in a lower price point property, starter homes, that's all that the buyer can do. So sometimes what I'll do, how I'll handle that as a listing agent is I'll say, okay, if that's all they can do, that's fine for now. And then that will have to increase at the finance and appraisal deadline. They're going to have to come up with another 1,000 or whatever. But just so you know, as far as earnest money goes, typical is about 1% roughly. I mean, I wrote a contract today on 1.3 million that we did 10,000. I mean, it's a very quick closing. So, I don't foresee it being a problem, but roughly in that 1% range most of the time. So, okay, due diligence and inspection. So on this one, I mean, I've lived through it all. I've lived through the pandemic years where we weren't even writing in a due diligence period, which is crazy. Don't do that. But the typical time for that is about 14 days. And I would say it depends on the property. Like if you think that it's a newer property and you can get an inspector in and out and get it done, then that's something that like 10 days should be sufficient. Build rapport with inspectors now so that you're ready, so that you have someone that you can trust, that you can refer to your clients, get them in there, and then that should give you enough time to get an inspection and negotiate repairs, 10 to 14 days. Time for acceptance. So I've been getting offers this week. I've been going crazy. It's been great because a lot of my listings have been sitting and they're finally moving. So that's awesome. But I've been getting these offers like with like 3 hours to respond. And I'm like, that's just too hard, So typical on that response time is 24 hours. So if you're taking bullet point notes, 24 hours is a typical response time. Sometimes that won't be doable if you've got like multiple parties, whether it be a corporation or a trust. And you may need to give the seller a little bit more time. So that's something you can ask the seller's agent when you call. We talked about the pre-approval letter. Most agents are going to ask for it. I feel like when I get an offer, most times it is attached. A lot of times I'm working with agents I know, they've been in the business a long time. They're not wasting their time with unqualified buyers. If they're not qualified, they're not going to be sending an offer. So once you build that rapport, you kind of don't have to do that. But where you guys are newer, agents are probably going to want to know that, your buyer is indeed approved. Closing date, I have a lender that can close most things in 21 days. So we try to stay really competitive on that. But again, some sellers, they might need more time. They might not want to do a lease. Buyer might say, we don't want to do a lease back. There's lots of, what's the word? I guess risk. There's risk involved with a lease back. So sometimes it's not the best idea. So typical on that is gonna be 30 days, which is very short. Other states are definitely more like 45 to 60. We're just like pretty straightforward and simple with the way we do contracts and escrow here. So 30 days is good. Like I said, I try to do, if I'm trying to be competitive, like 21. So that's that. Home warranty, get involved with a home warranty company that you really like and trust. They are getting to be expensive. So when I started in the business, they were about 300. I'm so old, but they are now 800, 700 to 800. So I'm actually getting a little burnt out with my home warranty company because they keep going up, and I don't know, I may have to go somewhere else, but I do have a company that I like. I would say get involved with like learn your home warranty companies. Like right now, while you guys aren't so busy and swamped, like be preparing yourself for these things that will come up as you do, start to grow your business. So find a home warranty company. Definitely ask for a home warranty. Because I would say 95% of buyers are asking for home warranty, especially in this market. So you can usually get the seller to pay for that. You can have home warranties ordered after closing. It just has to be within 30 days of closing. Repair limits, we don't really do that here. We do have, like, this is an as is contract. Sometimes people will write in, like if you're negotiating and you get a good price, the seller may say, this is as is, we're not making any repairs. I can usually get them to still end up doing repairs at the end of the day, but it's good to know going in, like what their intentions are with that. Let's see. Addenda. So just really quick on this. So an addendum is addendum, a counter offer is a counter offer. I have agents all the time say, well, you missed the deadline. I'm like, well, we're countering. The deadline was for acceptance. We're countering. That's not the deadline for countering. That's an open-ended thing. So just so you know, if you get an offer and the response time is lapses, you can still counter the offer. And if the buyer accepts it within their given time period, you're still under contract. So, and then this is important as you're preparing, because this is again where I get moving really fast, and a lot of my clients are like really savvy. Like I have several attorney clients, they're just savvy people. And so they don't want to sit and go through contracts with me. But my first time buyers do, so I have to remember, like, take a step back, make sure these guys know what they're signing. So it's important to review the contract with your buyers. This is what we're offering. This is how long your earnest money is refundable. This is what's included. This is what's excluded, etc. Okay. Avoid rookie mistakes. Yes. Oh, is that it? Did I just a second. Okay. I think that's it. Do you guys have any questions to go over?
I have a couple of questions.
Yeah.
Can you go over the addendum versus the counter offer? What were you saying about that?
Yes, for sure. So an addendum is used once once we have come to an agreement. So say we well, yes and no. So I've written offers before with like 3 addendum that are already with the original offer. So before we even go under contract, we're at addendum 1, 2, or 3. Say you have the contract and you have an FHA addendum, you have a subject to sell addendum, and you have a seller or agent related to buyer addendum. Those are 3 separate addendums that you could have with your offer. So you have your offer, and then you have addendum number 1, 2, and 3. I'm not saying you would, but you could. The offer is not valid and accepted until that offer paperwork plus addenda 1, 2, and 3 are all signed acceptance by the seller. Okay, so that's just offer and addenda. And the offer, the rep C, the 6-page rep C with the addenda together make up the offer, make up the agreement. Okay, and then we go and we do our inspections and we end up asking the seller for something. Then that is another addendum. So then that's addendum 4. So now the rep C plus the 4 addenda make up the offer. So that's addendum. Counter offer is when you get an offer from you are the listing agent, you get an offer from a buyer's agent. Your seller says, nope, I'm not going to pay their closing costs. Then the way you would write that counter, if there was an offer that say the offer is 500,000, we want 10,000 in seller paid closing costs. You sign, your client signs the offer, marks counter offer, check and says addendum number 2. We're countering with addendum number 2 because we already have an addendum number 1 asking for 10,000 in closing. So then addendum number 2 says closing costs paid by seller to be $0. The seller signs it, sends the signed contract with the counter offer marked on both the Rep C and the addendum back to the buyer with the counter offer, addendum number 2, marked counter offer. Up at the top, you'll see addendum or counter offer. You mark counter offer. And then, sorry, I keep getting a lot of text messages. And then not until the buyer signs the counter offer are you under contract.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. Yeah. Thank you.
Sure.
One other quick question.
Yeah.
If I were to purchase an investment property, like for myself, is there anything I would need to do specifically if I'm making the offer for me?
Yes, that's a great question. There is an addendum called, I think it's like notice of interest. And it says that you'll see where you mark the box. It says, I am a real estate agent or I am related to the real estate agent, a relative of. So you would just say, I am a real estate agent. It's very important that you include that addendum with your offer.
Okay. So that's the only thing I would have to do differently.
Yes. Yep. Just disclose your interest. Yep.
Okay, great. Thank
Yep,
you.
that's all. And then you can still, I think that's what's nice about the new changes where we write the commission into the Rep C, because it's all about the net to the seller, right? So in that section 4 now where you can write in your commission, you can do that how you want. If you really want to take a commission, you can, or you can just write the offer for less and put that at 0. And then that seller is netting, even though you're offering 12,000 less, they're netting their asking price because you just took the commission out of it and said 0 in the commission section. And I like that because it didn't used to be that way. It used to be that a seller had already agreed to a commission amount with with a listing agent, and then they were going to split it with you. And so then when you're representing yourself, you're like, well, am I getting the full credit for this? Or, so I would, anyway, it's nice. I like the change. But yeah, that's the only other thing is just like the commission, but you can take a commission for your own property if you really want to.
Awesome.
It's better to just not, because then you don't pay taxes, but
okay.
to take the lower price, but yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Anything else? That was a lot. I was talking really fast because I felt like I was talking to myself. So I was like, this is.
You did great. Thank you.
It's not your fault. I just
We're here. I promise.
Yeah, no, we're listening.
We're listening.
It's weird being on Zoom. Is there anything else? Is there like questions you have about the actual contract, like any sections? I think we talked about that a little bit that you guys haven't quite. This is the thing I would do is I would like study the contract. And I know if you're like me, it's kind of hard to like learn until you've like lived it and done it, and you kind of go, okay, what does this all mean until you're actually doing it. But I still think the more you've read through it and ask yourself the question, like pretend, like take a contract and pretend like you're writing it for yourself or someone else and just start filling it in and then say, oh, what should I do here? Oh, what should I do here? And then just kind of like work yourself through it. That's what I would do.
That's a great idea.
You're like, oh, Annie said 1% earnest money. Okay, that's what we'll fill in up here, So, yeah. And earnest money, I still do checks. I usually pick up a check from my client and turn it in. I think there's like earnest, which is a wire. So just make sure that, again, like you want to be very exact in the way you do your contract. So if someone is wiring earnest money, then make sure you write wire in that section. So,
So it's usually only wire or check.
yeah. Mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, you don't want to do cash or anything like that because the lender is going to need a paper trail.
Mm-hmm.
So check or wire, yeah. And it can be a cashier's check or a personal check, either one.
Okay.
So, yeah. So, does that give you a good overview for now? for a speed round?
Yes, I'm sure I'll have more questions later when I get more into it
No,
or
that's
start
great.
writing them.
Yeah, for sure. No, you guys are always welcome to reach out to me. Any questions you have, feel free to
Great.
call me. But yeah, I think that was like all of what was there. Let me see. Oh, sorry, that's something else. Okay, yeah. Is there any ahas that you had that you'd like to share or ask questions on?
I can't think of any right now.
Okay, no, you're great. Thank you so much. I think we can, I'm getting a bunch of text messages that I probably need to respond to because I have to leave at 7. So
Yeah, I have to leave. Yes, pretty
okay,
soon here
no
too. So
problem.
that's
No,
great.
thank you so much. Thanks for
Thank you
coming.
for your
And yeah,
thank you for
again,
your
don't
time.
hesitate to reach
Thank
out.
you.
Okay, thanks so much.
Yeah, it's great. Thanks. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.